Hi everyone, Kate here, and today we're going to be discussing historical cat care. Woo! As one of the rewards for my highest Patreon tier level, you get to pick a video topic of your choice, and my current Bee's Knees Patreon selected historical cat care, specifically the Victorian and the Edwardian era. And here to help me today is my beloved little toothless shelter cat, Aggie. She was toothless when we got her from, well, almost toothless when we got her from the shelter, so not our fault. Aggie is short for Agatha Christie. Originally, now I think it's probably more short for aggravation. My cat definitely thinks she's people, so we will not be trying any of the advice on her today. Also because a lot of the Victorian and Edwardian cat care advice that I came across, a lot of it's not really good advice. So for everyone's sake, she'll just sort of be wandering in and out. We won't be trying her with any of the cat care advice. Oh, by the way though, despite the evil black cat stereotype, there was a belief, at least among some people in the Edwardian era, that black cats were actually good luck. They were seen as much prized, hairbringers of good fortune, and their image was used on everything from ink blotters to pincushions. At least according to Every Woman's Encyclopedia from 1910. Speaking of publications, my main resources for this video are going to be The Cat, a guide to classification and varieties of cats, and a short treatise on their care, diseases, and treatment, which is from 1895, interspersed with some information from other sources, such as the aforementioned Every Woman's Encyclopedia. As always, the information being presented in this video is for historical interest. This is not intended as a modern advice video. I try to put that disclaimer on, like, most of my videos, but especially this one. Do not do these things to your poor kitties. For the rest of this video, I'm going to be talking more about urban cat care rather than country cat care. Cats in the country were there to serve a functional purpose rather than as pets, except perhaps for very young children, and they thus received very, very minimal care. Town cats, however, were kept more by choice rather than by necessity, and therefore would have had a more comfortable existence. Especially those kept in homes that had enough money to spare on their animals. And I hate to say cat collection, cat breeding and keeping of sort of special varieties of cats was a popular pastime. You know, like taking your cat to cat shows and things. Aggie would not tolerate that whatsoever. She is not a show cat. Cats were still very much pets though, and they certainly weren't the little fur babies that many people treat them like today. I think that's important to keep in mind that when we're talking about historical animal care, that the attitude towards animals in general, and specifically in this case pets, was very different than it is today. During the Edwardian and Victorian periods, cats and pets were very much seen as objects rather than furry little humans. They were a thing. They were an item, and a lot of their treatment is as such. They weren't really seen as their own little being. They were unfortunately treated very much as a thing. Ooh, Aggie, you might want to cover your little ears for the next bit. I'm gonna try to keep this video fairly light. We're talking more about the care of animals specifically rather than animal treatment in general, which, as I already mentioned, was not the greatest. In the days before spaying, kittens were gotten rid of to help keep populations in check. I actually was quite surprised in the Victorian book I read, they did mention neutering, and spaying existed. Apparently, I was actually surprised that it existed at all, but it was a very risky medical procedure. I mean, human medical procedures were pretty risky back then, so there was obviously misgivings about getting rid of kittens, however, as Every Woman's Encyclopedia specifically mentioned certain cat breeds who were known to have kittens less readily. These were suggested to those who were tender-hearted and who found the yearly or even more frequent problem of disposing of kittens a truly painful one. You can take your paws off your ears now. We're going to keep it fairly light from here on in. We're not going to talk about any medical cat procedures such that there was. So we're just going to be talking about sort of daily cat care rather than anything too gruesome. While country cats would have mostly fed themselves, town cats expected to be fed. especially in the Edwardian era when hygiene was all the rage. It was stressed in publications that you should keep your pet's food bowl or plate, as well as his water bowl, scrupulously clean. Which is great. That is good advice. Keep your pet's food stuff clean. However, the diet advice given rather surprised me. I think nowadays we all know that cats are carnivores. They are obligate carnivores. They must eat meat to live. Although they do eat other things from time to time. Aggie personally loves corn, like cobs of corn. Does anybody else have a cat that loves corn on the cob? Is that weird? Aggie goes crazy for corn. Anyways, there does seem to have been concern amongst owners at the time that feeding cats meat was not a good idea. But The Cat reassures its readers that occasionally feeding your cat a bit of raw beef or mutton was good for it, as often as once a day in small quantities. Cat's meat, horse, and fish were also suggested, although near the end of the chapter, the book actually leads with suggesting that a cat's diet should be primarily milk or cream, with a bit of bread or oatmeal thrown in from time to time, as well as vegetables, such as asparagus and celery. Apparently cats just love asparagus and celery. While that's a diet that sounds appealing for me to eat, cats are usually lactose intolerant, so feeding them a diet primarily of milk is not a good idea. I think it's safe to say a lot of these cats probably would have been supplementing their own diets. Old houses and mice kind of go hand in hand, so I'm sure most of these cats probably would have been consuming meat. They may not have been fed meat, but I'm sure they would have found something a little more satisfying in the kitchen rather than just porridge. Cats were actively discouraged from sleeping on beds due to concern about diseases and fleas, and likewise discouraged from sleeping on pretty much any people furniture, sofas, chairs, etc. Instead, it was recommended there should be in some convenient corner near the window in order to get sunlight if possible, and at the same time not in a draught, a basket kept filled with clean oat straw or with flannel. While a flannel cushion looks prettier, clean oat straw, in which the cat can turn and roll, allows it to keep its coat much cleaner and in better order. But the straw, of course, has the disadvantage of being scattered over the floor when the animal leaves its basket. Wherever it is possible, the basket should be in the sunlight, as cats love to bask. The basket and its filling must be kept absolutely clean. If the animals are troubled at all with fleas or other insects, the bedding can be sprinkled with little flowers of sulfur, which will drive them off. Again, this is historical advice. Please don't put sulfur in your cat's bed. Also, to help mitigate disease, as well as keep your kitty looking pretty, it was suggested to keep your cat scrupulously clean, especially if they were in contact with children. Many cats would have especially been children's pets, so this was quite a concern at the time. Now, cats are naturally very clean animals and do a lot of the work themselves, but brushing with a soft brush or bath mitten was recommended. Bathing your cat was briefly mentioned in The Cat. However, it was mentioned with some trepidation and a note that it was difficult unless the animal is very tame. Yeah. An alternative way suggested to obtain a shiny coat was to rub the animal's fur with a bit of oil, such as coconut oil or olive oil. Again, this publication is talking a lot about show animals. These were animals that were being kept for the hobby of sort of being kept and taken to cat shows, so being well groomed was definitely a concern. Also, I can personally attest that a cat's diet will affect how shiny and glossy they are. I don't think some of these poor little Victorian and Edwardian kitties were quite as well fed as my little princesses. Now, I have a friend who claims herself to be a cat connoisseur, and she claims Aggie is the softest cat she's ever felt, so, you know. It wasn't uncommon to keep cats as show animals, and thus there was a need to transport them around at least occasionally. The Cat has this description of a cat-carrying basket, bought in Paris, very fancy. It was said to be in the form of a good-sized lined basket, built with a floor, ends, rear, and top, quite strong enough to prevent breaking, although it is very light. This is covered with leather to represent a traveling bag. The front has a wire screen, which can be dropped and buckled, and this is covered by a loose flap of leather, similar to the rest of the case, which can also be buckled down. When closed, ample entrance of air is left for ventilation, and the bag has exactly the appearance of an ordinary traveling bag. When in a railroad car or elsewhere, the leather flap can be lifted up, leaving the cat secure, but at the same time allowing it to see its owner or be amused by surrounding objects. Yes, amused. That's what traveling with cats. That's always their attitude. They're just amused. This description actually sounds quite a bit like a modern cat carrier to me, perhaps a little more stylish than the one I have anyway, but it's obviously a design that has very much stood the test of time. Now, children were very lucky if they had toys during this time period, so I obviously couldn't find a lot of reference to purpose-made cat toys. Cats likely just played with whatever they could find, living or otherwise. I did find, however, numerous mentions of cats playing with yarn and knitting projects, which, as a knitter myself, I can personally attest is still an issue to this day. Cats love yarn. Now, this is just personal experience, but cats seem to especially like wool yarn. I think it's something about the lanolin smell. Superwash versus like a more rustic yarn. My cat will always go for the more rustic yarn and try to eviscerate it. I did find one reference to a cat toy, which was from a memoir published in 1939. This is a little bit out of the time period that I focused on in this video, but I thought it was worth mentioning. It said that the customary cat plaything was a wisp of paper tied to the end of a string. Although the cat in this book wanted nothing to do with it. It just completely ignored it and then went and killed something. Cats are furry little murderers. I mean, I think any cat person knows that. Okay, so I did actually test this one on Aggie. I know I said I wasn't gonna like do any of the historical cat care stuff with her, but this is pretty harmless, so I gave this one a try. She was a fan. If you want to try this yourself, you just need a length of string or yarn. I went with yarn, and then you just tie up a little bit of paper at the end. Like you could even use like a brown paper bag or something like that. And you just get a woo. Speaking of play, the Every Woman's Encyclopedia has an entire article dedicated to teaching your cat tricks. Now, I don't think I'm going to have Aggie playing dead or balancing on a ball anytime soon, like some kind of circus animal. But I did kind of like the idea suggested of teaching her to ring a bell for supper. That sounds a lot less destructive than her usual manner of getting my attention around supper time. The idea is that you're supposed to tie like a string on a bell near their food spot, and then train them to associate the sound of the ringing bell with dinner time, with the hope that they will learn to ring the bell themselves when they want food. I'm not sure if this idea is brilliant or if this would get really annoying really fast. I feel like the cat would just ring it constantly. You know, the old, oh, I'm hungry. I mean, you fed me 5 minutes ago, but I'm starving now. Another trick suggested was to encourage the cat to either like jump over somebody's arms or through a hoop. You're supposed to have somebody on one side of the hoop call to the cat, and then the cat has to like go through the hoop, starting on the ground and then lifting it gradually higher as they kind of learn the trick. Okay, I did try this, but I kind of had the hoop balanced, and then I was trying to like lure Aggie through the hoop just on the floor, not jumping through the hoop. Then the hoop fell and it nearly hit her. It didn't hit her, but it nearly hit her. It's a light hula hoop. It wouldn't have done any damage. Now she's terrified of hula hoops. Oops. I'll link the article below if anybody wants to read it. I think getting a cat to do a lot of these things would be fairly difficult. Cats are known to be fairly willful, so playing dead, like you go like bang and the cat like plays dead and then jumps up when you say a code word. It's like, that's a dog trick, right? Like, I can't see cats actually doing that. Now, most of the information presented in this video has been very pro-cat, but as I mentioned, cats in the country would not have been treated as well, and many people just didn't like cats, such as the author of this particular article. This is an excerpt from the Women's Manual, published in 1916. The author says, "Cats come in contact with foul sewer rats. They spread mange and ringworm. They roughen new clothes with their claws. They give brassy midnight duets. They shed hair on caressing children, and they travel at night to the homes of infectious illness. Everything from a cat's body is singularly foul. Let a tomcat back to the wall twice a day only, and there's soon a tenacious smell hard to locate and remove. Cats are suspected of killing feeble babies. They are noisy when hungry. They show weird activity in the house of death. And 20 centuries have not lessened their bird-killing guile. There are many counts against a cat. Why keep cats? If you continue reading, the author is clearly a dog person. Maggie, you're not foul, are you? No, you're a pretty little kitty. Yes, you are. You're so soft. Anyways, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this little peek at Edwardian and Victorian cat care. As always, thank you for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye! This video is made possible through the generous support of my Patreons. Thank you, and special thanks to my Bee's Knees Patreon, Stone Gassman. I themed my outfit. I was gonna wear my cat sweater for this video, but it is so humid today, which is why my hair is like not curly. Maybe I'll have to add the cat sweater in B-roll. That's like my favorite sweater. Just, if any knitters out there who are curious about it, it's the Professor Meow sweater from Knit Picks. It's like the cutest thing. I love that sweater.
No, it's all about you. It's all about you. Ah! Cranky?